My name is Ricardo. I am 71 years old. And I spent almost 2 decades of my life believing that existing was enough. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't depressed. I wasn't having a crisis. I didn't cry at night, nor did I feel that everything was wrong. Simply, I was there. I existed. I functioned. I breathed. But I didn't live. When I was 42 years old, I worked as an accountant at a medium-sized firm. I had a wife, 2 teenage children, a mortgaged house, a new car. Everything a man is supposed to have at that age. My routine was perfect, predictable, orderly. Monday to Friday, wake up at 6, quick shower, black coffee, leave at 7. Office until 6 in the evening. Get home, have dinner, whatever there is, watch television until 10, sleep. Saturdays, supermarket, fix things around the house, take the kids to their activities. Sundays, mass, family lunch, nap, and back to start. I wasn't complaining. Many would have wished to have that stability. But there was something strange that I began to notice over time. When someone asked me, "How are you, Ricardo?" I always responded the same. We're getting by, working. As if my entire existence could be summed up in those 2 words. Working, always working. But living, that I no longer knew. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at the bank waiting in line to pay some bills. In front of me was an older gentleman, maybe in his 70s. He was dressed casually, in a linen shirt and a straw hat. He was carrying a book under his arm. We started talking while we waited. He asked me what I did for a living. I told him I was an accountant. He smiled and said, "How interesting, and what else do you do?" The question threw me off. What do you mean, what else do I do? Yes, besides work. What do you like to do? What are you passionate about? I was blank. Literally. I didn't know how to respond. I tried to think of something, anything. But there was nothing. I had no hobbies. I didn't read. I didn't play any instruments. I didn't paint. I didn't write. I didn't do sports for fun. I just worked and did what I had to do. The man noticed my silence and said, with a calmness I still remember, "Take it easy, kid. It's not a test. But think about it, because a life without something that is just yours is not a complete life." He kindly said goodbye and left. I stood there holding my papers, feeling something strange in my chest, as if someone had opened a door I didn't even know existed. That night I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about his question. What else do you do? And I realized something terrifying. I wasn't doing anything else. My whole life revolved around my responsibilities. Husband, father, employee, provider. But what about Ricardo? The Ricardo that existed before all those roles. That Ricardo had disappeared. I don't know when it happened. It was gradual. Like when you stop watering a plant, and one day you realize it's no longer alive. I remembered that when I was young, I liked to draw. Nothing professional, just sketches, landscapes, faces. I did it in my notebooks while studying. I also liked music. I used to listen to jazz on Sunday mornings. It relaxed me. It made me feel something. But all of that was left behind. Because one had to be responsible. Because adults don't waste time on those things. Because family comes first. And don't get me wrong, family is important. Work is necessary. But at some point, without realizing it, I stopped being a person with my own life and became just a function. A cog. A name on a list of obligations. A few days later, I returned to the bank. I hoped to find him again, and I did. This time we talked more. He told me he was a retired teacher, that he had worked for 40 years in a public school, that he had raised 3 children alone because his wife had died young. I asked him how he managed not to get lost in all of that. He looked at me intently and said, "Because I learned something important. If you disappear, everything you built also disappears. Your family doesn't need a ghost that pays the bills. They need a real person. And to be a real person, you have to have something that keeps you alive inside." He told me that during the worst moments, he kept reading, even if it was half an hour before sleeping. He kept listening to music, even if it was while cooking. Those little moments were my oxygen. Without them, I would have drowned. That phrase marked me. Because I was drowning, and I didn't even know it. I'm not going to lie to you. Changing wasn't easy. Because when you've been living on autopilot for years, waking up hurts. At first, I felt ridiculous. Me, a 42-year-old man pulling out my old sketchbooks, buying books I probably wouldn't finish, going for walks alone on Saturday mornings without a clear purpose. I felt selfish, as if I were stealing time from my family. But little by little, I started to notice something. When I drew even for 10 minutes, I felt lighter. When I read before sleeping, my mind truly rested. When I walked, I could think, I could feel, and most importantly, I started having real conversations with my wife, with my children, because I had something to say. Not just how was school or did you pay the electricity bill, but real things, thoughts, ideas, emotions. I became more present. Not because I was doing more, but because I was being more. Today, nearly 30 years later, I can tell you this with complete certainty. You can't give yourself fully to others if you yourself are empty. Being responsible doesn't mean disappearing. Your obligations are important, but they are not your identity. If you do not cultivate something that is solely yours, one day you will wake up and not recognize yourself. Adulthood is not a resignation, it is a balance. And this is the hardest thing to accept. Time does not wait, and regret comes quietly, but it comes. Today I am 71 years old. I am still a husband. I'm still a father. Now I'm also a grandfather. But I am also Ricardo. The Ricardo who draws on Sundays. The Ricardo who reads 2 books a month. The Ricardo who walks every morning listening to music. The Ricardo who teaches free accounting classes to young entrepreneurs because that fills me with purpose. I am not perfect. I do not have everything figured out. But I am alive. And that, believe me, is something not everyone can say. If you're listening to this and feel like your life is just an endless list of things to do, if you no longer remember what you liked before adulting came, if you feel like you exist but you don't live, I want you to know something. It's not too late. You can still recover. You can still return to yourself. You don't need a crisis. You don't need to give anything up. You just need to make space. A little space for yourself. Because life is not just about fulfilling. It's about being present, about feeling, about building something that, when you look back, makes you say, yes, that was me. That's mine. Don't disappear into your own life. Because in the end, when it's all over, the only thing you'll take with you won't be the bills paid or the obligations fulfilled. It will be what you truly were. And that, my friend, only you can build.